I cannot believe that summer is almost over. To me, August is the last month of summer because when I was in high school, we still had summer all the way until the Labor Day weekend, and then we would go back to school. I have a few books that I plan to read in August. These books are part of my summer TBR list. I did pick a few books for June and July blindly, and these are the books that are left over. Anyways, let's get started with the very first book. The first book that I have is The Stand-In by Lily Chu. This book's premise is super interesting. It's about Gracie, who just got fired from her job, and she also still needs to figure out her mom's kind of like health situation, and to do all of that she needs a lot of money. And one day a random car just stopped in front of her, and from that car came out like a couple that are supposedly the golden couple of Chinese cinema, and the actress Wei Fang Li looks exactly like Gracie. So Wei Fang Li kind of proposed an agreement to Gracie where she would make a lot of money, and all she has to do is just to switch places with Wei Fang Li for a certain amount of time. And because she needed the money to figure out her life situation, she said yes, and she obviously have to also hang out with Wei Fang Li's partner Sam Yao. And I guess at first he was kind of like infuriating and they don't really get along, but I'm pretty sure after spending some time together they eventually will get along and something will be brewing between them. The next book that I have is Wildfire by Hannah Grace. This is the second book in the Maple Hills book series. I did read Icebreaker, I think in March or April, and I want to continue on with the whole series because I already have all of them. This is about Russ and Aurora, who actually had a one-night stand toward the end of the semester before summer break starts, thinking that they will not see each other in the summer and maybe they'll bump into each other on campus in the fall. However, they actually ended up working together at a summer camp as counselors. This just screams summer to me, and I feel like I have to read this in the summer, so hopefully I'll be able to read this in August as well. The next book that I have is called One Italian Summer by Rebecca Serle. I believe that's how you say the author's name, but I've never read anything from this author, and I've heard that this book is pretty good. This is about Katie, whose mom Carol passed away in the beginning of the book. They were planning this big Italian trip in the summer and they weren't able to do it because Carol passed away kind of unexpectedly, I believe. Katie still decided to go to Italy anyway to kind of do the whole itinerary that she planned with her mom, but lo and behold, when she stepped into Italy, she saw her mom in the flesh, but it is her mom when she was 30 years old. So I think there's some type of magical realism in this book or something. So I'm super curious to see how that would play out. And also this book is pretty small, so it might be a great books to read in between like longer, bigger books. The next book that I have is Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I've heard so many great things about this book series. There are actually 3 books in the series. It's about 3 best friends and each of them has their own book. And this one is about Yasmin and Josiah, who was married but ultimately decided to separate and get a divorce. However, after their separation, they still need to co-parent their kids and also work on their business together. And I guess after spending some time doing both of them like actually really greatly, they are starting to question if their decision to get a divorce is actually a good one for them, because it seems like everything is working out again. And I just want to know what's gonna happen at the end, if they're gonna get back together, as in like, you know, maybe start dating again and then eventually got married again. I'm not sure, but like I said, I've heard so many great things about this book series, and it's gonna be my first book that I'm reading from Kennedy Ryan, so I'm really hoping that I will get into this in August. Next book is actually the one that I just decided to add because I need to read this to complete this series, and it is We'll Always Have Summer by Jenny Han. This is the 3rd book in the Summer I Turned Pretty series, and I've already read the first 2 books, and so far I do like the first book way better than the second book, and I'm hoping that this will kind of tie up everything that has happened in the last 2 books. And the reason why I decided to add this into my August TBR is because the last and final season is already out on Prime. I haven't watched the first and second season yet, but I'm hoping that if I'm able to read this book and finish the series by the end of August, I can start binge watching the TV series. So hopefully I will be able to read this in August. I feel like this is gonna be a pretty easy read because the first 2 books I read them within like a day or 2. This one is probably about like 30 or 50 pages longer than the first 2 books, so I think I can finish this pretty quickly. The next book that I have in my August TBR is Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan. I feel like I just have to read this in the summer because summer is the title of the book. This is about Ali, who is a professional organizer whose own life is a mess. Her mom died 2 years ago and then her husband left her, and she hasn't worn pants with a zipper in longer than she cares to remember. Sounds like me a little bit. I don't really wear pants with zipper in a long time, to be honest. No one is more surprised than Ali when the first time she takes off her wedding ring and puts on pants with hardware, she meets someone. Or rather, her dog claims a man for her by peeing on him. Ethan smiles at Ali like her pants are just right, like he likes what he sees. He looks at her like she's a younger, braver version of herself. The last thing newly single mom Ali needs is to make her life messier, but there's no harm in a little summer romance, is there? I feel like I absolutely have to read this in the summer because it is about summer romance, and I just want to know what's gonna happen at the end. If Ali and Ethan are gonna end up together, or are they just gonna have like one of those summer flings. The last book in the stack is Summer in the City by Alex Asher, and again, because summer is in the title of the book, I have to read this in the summer or else I would have to wait until next year. I'm just kidding. If I didn't get to read these books in August, I'll probably will read them in September. Anyways, this book is about Elle, who is a screenwriter, and she is writing a screenplay for this big budget movie set in New York City. The problem is she has been on a writer's block for a long time, and I think the deadline for the screenplay is at the end of the summer. So in desperate need to get some more inspiration to write, she decided to move to New York City temporarily, even though she swore off never to return to New York 2 years ago. Once she moved in and settles in, she realized that she actually moved in next to this billionaire bachelor, Parker Warren, and they actually hooked up 2 years ago. And I guess seeing him for the first time in a couple years triggered her writing ideas, and she was able to write her screenplay based on Parker. I think eventually they started talking and they started to hang out, and I think he was proposing an agreement to her where they kind of fake date and go to this different like super bougie high class New York events and stuff like that. And I feel like from there old feelings are coming back, and I cannot wait to see what happens at the end, if they're gonna end up together. I feel like I already know what it's gonna be.